and welcome to the Safety Brief, your go-to source for the latest trends and insights in cybersecurity. I'm your host, Elizabeth, and today we'll be diving into the topic of secure remote work practices. With the rise of remote work, ensuring the security of the company data has been more crucial than ever. Joining me today is Matt and Mike. Thanks for being here as always.
You got it.
I can say we definitely missed you last week there, Mike.
Cyber Paul Bunyan has returned.
Yes, he has.
I don't
Missing his
think I've
flannel
worn that
shirt though.
flannel for a long time, but okay.
Yeah, that's your new nickname. You're just gonna have to
He
accept it.
threw that flannel away that day and it's never been seen
It's not thrown
again.
away. It's just packed up in a box somewhere. Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys covering down. It was a big move week for us as a family, and so moves are always they're always more stressful than I think maybe can be forecasted, just to the amount of uncertainty. So appreciate you guys holding it down, and thanks for everybody that tuned in last week.
Of course. Happy to have you back. So, remote work environments often lack the security measures found in traditional office settings, making them eye-catching targets for cyber criminals. And as we know, we work from home, so we have a little bit of insight on that as well. So let's get started with the basics. What are the most common security risks associated with remote work?
Yeah, just to lead off, the most common security risks are anything you have in your home. These can include, but not be limited to, kids with certain devices on certain networks. They could be and are very vast majority taken up the fact that IoT has infiltrated almost every single home. And I say infiltrated. We've invited it in. We've bought it. We've installed it. It hasn't made its way on its own autonomously, but really the level of hygiene that exists in a home or home office will always be not match like a professional work environment, right? And no matter how good you could try and harden your home environment, yes, there are ways to harden your home environment. There is a stark difference between commercial enterprise and a level of security and maybe what's offered for the home, right? And so I think if you're looking at what kind of risks exist, really just take a look at anything that connects to the internet in your house, whether that's your TV, your fridge, your baby monitor, your sound, even a noise machine. There's a noise machine, like a white noise machine that we got for the littlest one. That needs to be network connected now. So that's going straight to the guest Wi-Fi. My wife's not a huge fan that she has to do that every time to manage it. But again, it's a matter of segmentation and being mindful of stuff like that. So I would say if you're looking for what risks exist, really anything connected to your home network is going to be posed as a risk, as well as your home network edge. Typically what is provided by your ISP is not counter to their marketing campaigns. A security appliance, right? It is a fleet factory built in mass for mass consumption residential home router, right? And so just because it has the password written on the back doesn't mean that it's not penetrable. Yes, there are ways to break into it without being right next to it. So yeah, I'd say just to open it up. I think, there are a lot of devices connected in the home than there much more than there were even just a year ago.
Honestly, the biggest threats are children. I mean, if you
Are we
really
still talking
want to,
cybersecurity here? Or are we talking about just life in general?
I mean, both.
All around.
Flying objects are a hazard to your laptop, potentially
That's
getting
right.
broken. Rambunctious kids,
That's
hazard to
right.
your laptop, potentially getting broken.
Kinetic
Children
risks,
playing on Roblox is extremely risky
logical risk.
because you have no idea who they're talking to, and
That's
they
right.
could be phishing to get information.
That's right.
Minecraft is a fantastic way. As we know, there was a way to exploit active code and get access to machines via Minecraft
Right.
because, owned by Microsoft, and they're obviously so up on security these days.
I
Swear
love
you
the
could hire
enthusiasm there.
all the morons at Microsoft. You
Capital so much.
disappear.
Capital
Um,
so much. So much security.
exactly. Hey,
Yeah.
Microsoft, there's things called resume generating events. Working at Microsoft should be a resume generating event at this
Right.
point. Just throwing that out there. Um, there's your neighbors are a credible threat.
Yeah.
I mean,
Anyone who
neighbors,
enters your house.
neighbors have things like these that are sitting around. You know,
That's right.
I'm not scanning your ports or anything. I don't have my custom one that I can see readily off the top Yeah, I don't
The
know.
people you're doing a live stream with could
Yeah,
be a
people
threat.
you're in a live stream with can be a very, very large threat. I have no
Exactly.
idea what you're talking about there, but yes,
Exactly.
I mean, there's countless different things that you could be opening yourself up to. You were talking about your internet. Did you know that most people, when they put crap in their house, don't disable the guest network?
Hmm.
It's wide open. It's never actually protected, and in most cases, the if it is protected, the password is something really stupid
A lot of the
and
times too, they
default.
have the 2G and the 5G as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
some people don't even know that. They just know of like the main one that they use.
There was a certain router I was playing with that when you went in to try and disable the guest network, it told you it could not be disabled. It was required to remain active.
Hmm.
Well, you know how
Wow.
you disable it? Throw it against a wall really hard.
Unplug it.
I
Unplug
promise
it.
you, that
It's a less
guest
violent
network
way to
was
do that.
no longer working after it hit the wall and shattered.
You take your own network out. But hey, that's the most secure
I have
network after
replacement
all.
gear, so I'm
Right?
good with it.
I'll just hotspot it. I'll just hotspot it. Yeah.
I mean,
Just
I go to the extent that the the way I have my stuff set up is I have my main network that my stuff is on, and it's the fast network. And then I have a second internet that I bought that is in no way touching my primary internet. And that's where the TVs are connected because they have, wireless connectivity. That's where the tablets are connected. That's where anything that isn't mine is connected.
hmm.
So
Yeah,
I have everything
segmentation.
segmented off
Segmentation.
because I don't trust tiny things to not download something bad.
Especially
Right.
gaming. If you're
Hmm.
gaming and you're getting hit offline, we did that DDoSing
Right.
attacks.
Right.
So, so
Yeah.
just to like conclude all the, possible risk, it's, your unsecured home networks, the use of personal devices for work. If you're logging into your email or any of your work stations on your phone or your personal laptop, phishing attacks, targeting remote workers, and data breaches due to improper handling of sensitive information. So, keeping these risks in mind, how can employers securely access company resources from home?
VPN, and that is the only way that I would recommend doing that, but not just a VPN. There should be a combination of a VPN with basically an IPS system that is built into it. But on top of that, you have the VPN, you have the IPS, and you need to have what's called a connection or a connection aware group or location aware group. That is going to ensure that when you are connected to the VPN, you have access to items that you want to have because your IP address is going to change once you get on that VPN. If you are on the company VPN, you're going to know what the IP range is, the subnet. You're going to know what the gateway is that you're trying to go through, everything that you need to have in place. You see that, you have access. The way that I used to set machines up for people when they had to take them home, they didn't like me when I got done with this, by the way. Uh, our connection or the way that it was set up was if you took a machine home, it couldn't be used for anything. You could boot the machine up, you could use the local machine itself, plug it into an internet and try to access anything. I dare you to. Nothing would work. It was locked down because it didn't see that the VPN was connected and it didn't see the proper connection group being present. So you could try to browse anywhere you wanted to, nothing would happen. It was fully shut down. Inbound, outbound was just nuked.
Yeah, and that's a great strategy. It's a form of conditional access, and for end users here, just want to make sure we don't, shoot anything over end users' heads specific to making it applicable. Again, enterprises can sometimes provide tools like a VPN or computers of their own, but sometimes they can't, and sometimes they don't, right? And so if you are a user watching this or even navigating, the past 3 or 4 years that have been very much kind of a voluntold season of working from home, go home, set up an office, didn't ask if you had space, didn't ask if you had a computer to do such a thing, but just having to keep businesses running as usual. There are ways. There are ways to advocate for yourself and make sure that you protect your own home space. Against again, there could be threats introduced to the home through the work environment. Vice versa, and so it's not always the home poisoning that, but definitely something to bear in mind is network hygiene. It's been hit on, but I just want to unpack it again. A segmentation is the separation of devices in a network, right? So similar, the best analogy we can give is, you have a guest Wi-Fi and a home Wi-Fi. You have anybody come over, anybody's kids come over, they come over with tablets or phones. They should not be on the same network that maybe you and your home stuff are. You can't account for the hygiene. And I know it sounds silly. I know it sounds maybe out there, but in the same way that if a kid's sick, they shouldn't come over to the house, or if a kid's ill, not feeling well, they shouldn't come over and play with your kids. They could spread it. Computers are not so dissimilar. They're not so dissimilar. These things are easy to spread from computer to computer, and it's not always just the computer. It could be a tablet, it could be a phone, it could be a smartwatch, which I've seen a lot of kids just somehow pop up and run around with these days. And so now here, a couple of days after Father's Day, I'm already saying these days. So I'm sorry for that, but
welcome to being old.
Right. But again, segmentation is a really important matter. You do it already without even realizing it. If somebody's sick, you keep your distance, you keep your space, whatever it is. And so segmentation is a great way to do that, and also advocate for yourself to your company's perspective. Hey, if I'm expected to work from home, how can I go about securing my work at home? Right. That's not necessarily your job as a consumer to go out and purchase those things. It is your company's responsibility to advocate for you and make sure that there's proper protections in place. So, not that I maybe think there's a lot of end users out there just going to buy a couple $100 firewall, but again, advocate for yourself. Security is everybody's responsibility, right?
There's ways that you can get around this without having to spend a ton of money. You can actually, if your organization does not provide a VPN to you, there are VPN solutions out there that are extremely affordable and are usable for more than just accessing, your company's data. One of the biggest things, and I know a lot of people that leverage this. Hell, I use this all the time on my mobile device. I have a VPN that's running almost all the time. There are some situations I have to take it offline because certain solutions do not like to operate when you have a VPN that's running, and that's something that you have to kind of plan for. But leveraging a VPN is a really good way of keeping you safe, even if your company's not providing it. There are some caveats to that. Hold on, let me see where we are within our line of questioning. I think this would be applicable. Are we to number 4 yet, Elizabeth? Or can we transition to number 4?
Yeah, we can definitely transition to number 4.
Perfect.
So he's talking about what role a VPN can play in securing remote work and how effective it can be.
So VPNs as a whole, they are going to give you a layer of protection. Now, some VPNs are going to be better than others. Some VPNs just give you the ability to appear in a different location, but the level of security that they actually provide is not the same level. I would liken them to this little thing right here. It's adorable. It allows you to be cute when you're on the internet, but it doesn't give you that additional layer, because what happens when you connect to that VPN? Your connection information is still showing up. If someone gets access to that VPN, they could, in theory, find your connectivity information. That's where some VPNs set themselves apart. Some are what you would call zero logging VPNs. Those, there is a connection that is established between yourself and the VPN server. But all it shows is this, a connection from an anonymous source that doesn't trace back to anything in a database where it's directly stored. And anything that you do online doesn't trace back. There's zero logging. It doesn't monitor what sites you're going to. It doesn't monitor active connections. It doesn't do anything of that nature. Even better, there's some that are even stronger, and there's zero logging, but they're run in RAM. I know the solution that I use is like that. So if something happens and they think that there's any sort of a breach or any sort of security situation that would impact the users, they turn the server off. Since it's all running in RAM, it's not stored anywhere. It blows away everything. Yeah, they have to rebuild it when it comes back up. It takes a few minutes to get everything to reinitialize itself and all that fun stuff. There's other servers that are still going to be up and running during that time, unless it's like a widespread impact. If it is, they kill everything. They start bringing it back up. You may not have your VPN for a few minutes while they do that, but there's no chance of any of your information getting caught up. And that's a big thing. So if you're using a VPN, you're trying to connect to your office, you want to make sure you're using something that is extremely secure, that there's minimal chance that anything can trace back to you. Just to kind of put a few more layers of separation between yourself and anybody that might have prying eyes.
No, that's a good word, Matt. Now, for everybody, I missed it, but what was the small little device you said that would keep you adorable? What unpack that for us? What is that?
This thing, it's just a little popper thing.
Oh,
So I go to a pizza place and they have prizes, and I'm really good at winning tickets and stuff. So the tiny ones like that, and then I also have a little. Well, you can't really.
it's just
My
it's
background
taking you
Headless
out.
Pac-Man is back.
It's doing what a VPN does. It anonymizes
It
you
is.
online. It's
It
doing
is.
its
I have
job.
a tiny little dragon as well that I
love
use.
that.
They're
I
sitting
thought
on my
that was
desk.
a device. that
Yeah,
you
I did
hook
too.
up to
I was
your
like, what
computer.
does he have
No,
over
no.
here?
If I have devices, but they're not adorable. They're nightmare inducing. And then we
Got
of
it.
course have our tiny little ducky.
A rubber ducky, right?
Yeah.
Good old
We have
rubber
to
ducky.
have that because we work with them on a regular basis. They sent us ducks. So
That's it.
quack quack.
That's it. Yeah, up in Chicago, they do the rubber duck race down the river.
I've seen that, and that
see who wins.
actually
You sponsor a duck, get a little number on it, and
see, there you go. But don't
not
you guys
advocating for
also
gambling.
like,
Not advocating for gambling. Don't come for me. Don't DM us. Don't add us. But
don't you also turn the river green though for St. Patrick's Day?
yeah, it's environmentally friendly. Come on now.
Okay. Nothing else. Nothing says I want to celebrate St. Patrick's Day like visiting Swamp Thing's home.
Just a green river, right? Now, one thing for the listeners as well is we're going to share the screen here, specific to unpacking what exactly a VPN is, right? And so Google has some helpful articles on this. Apple does as well. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know exactly what a VPN is, what does it do? I've heard this term. A lot of people have heard this term now, I think in the last 10 to 12 months. But specifically what a VPN does is your browser, your apps on your phone, it doesn't have to be just through the web browser. They share and communicate information often. It could be location information. It could be data that you're absolutely sending and receiving. But some sites and applications will use varying levels of security. Not everything's built the same. So one application could be much more secure than another application. No different than one website could be much more secure than another website. But the goal is that this is the problem to solve, right? And so what happens is when you activate a VPN, any of that unsecured data that could be potentially intercepted or kind of man in the middle watched or gathered through a packet capture, if you know what that is. Essentially, that's data that's left in plain text. And that's the whole internet. I hate to break it to you, but the whole internet is unencrypted by protocol. And so when you enable a VPN, you're essentially tunneling that data through a non-translucent pipe, right? So if prior to you encrypting your data, prior to you activating a VPN, it is a see-through tube, similar to like what we used to have in the banks and the drive-through way back in the day, if you remember that. You could see what's coming in and out of that pipe. You could see with no prying eyes. It was just unencrypted. That essentially anonymizes that. So Google, one, has a VPN client as well that you can utilize. I'm unsure if this is a paid service. Now, Apple has something called Private Relay, which is a part of their subscription. If you have iCloud Plus, you already have access to it. But essentially what this does is any traffic through Safari or any app that's essentially going through that application, or any app traffic coming through that application, it also encrypts it, also makes it anonymized. And so again, this is not to be used to perform devious behavior, but more so to protect sensitive data, which candidly could be anything you're doing, right? A lot of people think, oh, maybe just my banking or maybe just my email is sensitive. Really, anything you're doing is worth protecting. And so the fact is that both Google on the Android platform with their VPN by Google One or Apple Private Cloud Relay. These are both viable solutions aimed towards consumers with high levels of security applied to it, exponentially more so than what you're doing just basic on the phone, right? Now, there are some browsers that you can download similar to like the DuckDuckGos of the world or maybe Brave, and they have ad blockers and trackers. These are good, but they're going to be two different mechanisms here, right? So I know that some people say, oh, well, I have a certain browser. I have a certain, I use Firefox, I use Brave, I use whatever your preference is, right? VPN and ad blockers are going to be two different mechanisms, both with the same end goal of security and anonymity, but ultimately, hopefully some practical nuggets here for those watching is specific to what do I do on my mobile device that I candidly is going to be the thing we all use the most often, right? And so...
And I'm glad that you brought that up as well, because I personally use AVG on my phone and personal endpoints. One thing I like about them is in the application, I have the AVG VPN, the tracking, blocking, and the cookie all in one on the application. So that's really nice. Additionally, something that we didn't bring up is also using multi-factor authentication, um, just to add an extra layer of security. And employees should also ensure that their Wi-Fi network is secured with a strong password and up-to-date firmware. So I know ensuring that you lock your devices is a big one, and some that a lot of people don't practice. But can you share some more best practices employees should follow to protect sensitive data while working remotely?
Yeah, I think there's an element to being conscious of where you're accessing your data, So I think of the employee in transit, whether it's at Starbucks, at a coffee shop, at an airport. Airport Wi-Fi that is a messy place, ladies and gentlemen. I would not recommend doing work on airport Wi-Fi. The benefit is that most, if not all, mobile carriers today, obviously a generalization, but will include hotspot. Okay, so hotspot, if it's something you're not familiar with, is centric to your phone. You essentially take your phone, you turn it into a mobile wireless router. There is a password that you set. Do not leave it the default. Do not make it your dog's name or your cat's name, right? Equal opportunity, whatever pet you have, whatever pet's name exists in your life. There is an element to where that is a more secure network to connect to because it's just you, right? We talk about segmentation, being able to split up what devices are connected to what network. And if it's on the same network, you can access it. So the beauty is something like a VPN. If you're at a hotel Wi-Fi, I would not just, unprotectedly join a hotel Wi-Fi or a coffee shop Wi-Fi or an airline Wi-Fi, right? So it's one thing to do that on a personal device, right? Everybody's conviction level may vary, and we have respect of that. But if you're on a business enterprise device where there is critical data on those machines, you definitely want to be cognizant of where you're plugging it in. Again, it comes back to the analogy about a sick kid, a sick coworker, right? These things can spread. They I know it's hard to see because we don't see the bits and bytes and light going through the cables and through the air, but this is a real thing that can spread, and you want to maintain hygiene in that way.
You do realize that the object that probably contains more data pertaining to your organization isn't going to be your laptop. It's going to be your cell phone.
For sure, if you have business applications installed. I know some people, based on conviction, won't do that, and some people will, right?
Even if you don't install business apps, you have conversations, you have messages, you have everything on there. So you were talking about going to a public airport. Well, I mean, all airports are public.
We're not at private airport level, Matt. Maybe some people are. But...
I mean, I love my private airport. I can't. So even if you're not connecting to the Wi-Fi, what do you have on your device? On the bottom of the device? This virtual background is annoying me, by the way. You have a thing that plugs in, right?
Physical port.
You have a physical port that you can actually plug in. How many airports have you read about that people have replaced power adapters with the capability to take over devices? It's not
Almost
just
like
the
a
cables that
skimmer.
you have to worry about.
Right.
There are people that have gone in and very stealthily sat there and replaced power adapters. So when you plug in, it automatically drops a payload on the device and gives them complete control over the device. You think your device is charging. What it's really doing is charging their bank accounts with all the information they're stealing off your device.
Yeah. So, as a practical takeaway, shameless plug here. Anchor, Anker, makes some really great stuff as far as cables, components, things like that. Do not use a cable that you can't vouch for where it came from. It is going to sound crazy, but there are absolutely cables similar to just something like this. Okay, it looks like a cable. It's got USB in, USB out, but it absolutely has wireless routing and wireless remote control built into it. I know everyone's going to be like, I don't know, man. It exists. It's real. It's not a matter of fiction. But I always travel with this guy here. So it's a wall brick. You need to charge your phone. You got some ports on the front, but it is also a travel power brick, right? So again, similar to what you're doing with Hotspot, you're using your own network that you can verify that you're projecting and you're joining. You're using your own power, right, and your own cables. So again, it's something to think of as you're traveling. This is a great little device. Pick this up at Best Buy, right? Anywhere you can buy stuff like this, you can find it. This one's the Anker 733 power bank. Again, it's wall adapter, 3 ports, wireless or travel brick in one. So, again, there's going to be a theme here to those listening. If you can verify where it came from, if you can verify that it's secure, as in your own phone's network or your own power and your own cable in your own home, that's what you'd want to err on the side of. I know a lot of us just blindly trust airport Wi-Fi, hotel Wi-Fi, right? Like, what would they do if something happened, right? It's your device. At the end of the day, it's not their device. So just be mindful and travel accordingly. I know there's a lot of traveling professionals out there and, some helpful tips, hopefully.
Yeah. The cables that they use to end up getting all of this, I mean, it's interesting. It's not just a cable. It's actually a cable that looks exactly like something you would get from Apple. It's the boring white that you expect from Apple because unimaginative, and has built-in Wi-Fi. So once it makes the connection, a Wi-Fi server becomes enabled, and the person just connects their device, and they can drop payloads. They can do everything. So Mike recommended Anchor. Anchor is awesome. Another one is JS Aux. They're generally cheaper than Anchor. You can find them on Amazon very readily, and they're usually in multi-packs. I have a ton of these in different sizes. They are braided, so they are actually durable, but they work extremely well. And I mean, look for a company that has a reputation, has reputable amounts of sales.
Right.
Obviously, avoid going to sketchy websites to order certain things. I mean, that's one of the things that we haven't really touched on about how to keep yourself secure while working remotely. I understand you really want that MP3, but let's not go to the website that is 100% Cyrillic and try to download it.
HTTPS
Just throwing that.
only, guys.
Yeah.
That's right.
Behind
That's
the
right.
VPN.
And
Hygiene's a theme. Hygiene's
Yeah.
a theme. Right.
Yeah. There's things you can do in your just basics that will keep you safe, keep you protected, keep you from having to worry about all of this. It's, as we mentioned, we're very firm supporters of Donkey and Shrek around here. We like layers.
That's right.
Cakes have layers.
That's
Onions have layers. You need all of those layers of protection to help keep you safe. The more layers that you actually have in place, the better it's going to be. The harder it's going to be to circumvent all of those different levels of security to get access. If they do, and they manage to get your data, then congratulate them, because that was a job well done.
They had to
They
work
can get
for
around
it.
all of that.
Right on.
And yeah, Elizabeth, that right there, that's standard USB-A. You can tell from the blocky connector right there. But the difference is, instead of just providing power, it has that little board right there. That little board is going to be programmable with payloads, possibly Wi-Fi, whatever you really want to put in there.
Right
It'll
on.
sit there patiently, waiting for you to plug, or waiting for somebody to plug that in. And there you go.
So the most dangerous thing too about this chip is you can't see it by looking at the cable, right?
Nope.
Like we don't have X-ray vision, and this is just an example of an X-ray I pulled up of, hey, yeah, the outside looks normal, looks like it can charge my device, no problem. But hate to break it to you folks, but if it's just power, it just needs a couple simple solders. That's it. There's no need
the example
for a microchip the size almost of the adapter. So again, we can't look and see and inspect all of these. That's why you should do your due diligence. Look at those cables that you're using at home. Look at those cables you're using while you travel. Just some practical tips here, not meant to scare. But again, don't ever, and again, I know Matt talked about, buy from reputable sources with reputable business trajectories. Just because it has 28,000 reviews on Amazon doesn't mean it's reputable, right?
Exactly.
So I always prefer to shop with geographically local businesses, right? Things maybe with my best interest in mind, things of that nature. But to each their own. They all have their brand loyalties, right? But again, just verify what you're using.
What you were showing right there, Elizabeth, this lovely silver part, the adapter on that giant picture that you had, that was the bulk of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Where everything else was that was built in is this lovely sheath that's right here. That's a lot of area for a few cables. There is so much room for activities, and they're using it.
So much room for activities. Okay, Step Brothers over here. And Mike actually brought that up. That was a great photo, Mike. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Mike
Yeah,
brought
yeah.
that up. I thought it was our master of the meeting that was doing that.
Oh no, I'm behind the curve here
Just
today.
Flannel Frank over here, pulling up some imagery.
Ooh, I'm totally renaming you to that.
I have another good question, and this is huge because there's a lot of people, under different compliances. So how can organizations ensure compliance with data protection regulations in a remote work environment? We've got people with HIPAA, we've got, all sorts of
Right.
different things that come to mind when you bring up compliance.
I mean, I'm a very firm believer in if you have all of these compliances, if there are things that are that level of secure, then you know what you do with your laptop if you're remote? Only work. Don't do like most people do and say, oh, well, I need to go do this. I don't want to walk to the other room. Oh, my work laptop is right here. Let me go ahead and do that. Anything that you do with that work laptop could be bad if it's not properly secured. I know, we've talked about this before. I worked in an environment where HIPAA was a huge thing. And we had to adhere to HIPAA. Do you know the hardest thing that we had to deal with? Getting people to adhere to HIPAA. Because it was a pain and they didn't want to. It made it to where anything they had to do took longer. So the easy solution to that was we don't want to adhere to the process and procedure that's in place. We want to find a way to do this easier. Well, that opens you up to liability. That opens you up to, if somebody finds out that you circumvented the process, there could be all kinds of ramifications up to and including a resume generating event. You don't want to have that. Now, if you're over in the EU, we know that they have very strict GDPR that's in place over there. We're talking about remote work. Well, if you're sending somebody overseas from Europe to work in, say, the United States, Canada, Mexico, there's a lot that you need to look at as far as requirements with what you can and can't do with data on that laptop if you are in another location. Such as, if you're not on VPN, what data should you or should you not access because it could put you in a precarious situation. And that's something that has changed these days. With remote, there's a lot more surrounding that whole, where are you accessing it from? Where's the data going? With GDPR, it adds another layer. If everybody, honestly, if we never got hit with COVID and didn't have to forcibly go into remote work, it would be easier because most people would still be in an office. They would also be miserable because they're still in an office. But The data would be there. It
Second
would be
that.
secured. You wouldn't have to worry about the remote aspect of it.
There's some people out here that are happy in their office. You know what I mean? Like, not everybody got
You know,
And
I'm
if you
okay.
are in your office and
a
you're
barn
sad,
at their
maybe
house.
sorry.
I mean, I'm okay. If you want to be in the office, that's great. Personally, I like being home away from Sicky Sue, who is always coming in sick because they don't have any more vacation time or they don't have any more sick days. Keep
All right,
the
you're Healthy
parasite
Hank now.
over
That's
there.
what your name is. You
Healthy
stay away
Hank.
from Sicky Sue.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I think
yeah.
there's an
Go ahead.
important piece. No, you're good, man. There's an important piece to this. Whenever we're talking about compliance, is before you can implement controls, you need to classify that data. You need to know what exactly you are handling that applies to that compliance. Now, obviously, most in the HIPAA vertical, most in the PCI vertical know what that is already. There are some out there that are pursuing compliances like CIS, that is a cybersecurity framework. There are some that are pursuing CMMC, and they're having to learn this process brand new because of the nature of increasing government regulation on this, and for good reason, right? And so, again, the first thing towards any compliance, if you're trying to secure data, you need to know what data applies to the compliance itself, right? Where are we transmitting this patient data, credit card data, transaction-like data? Once you find out what data applies to that compliance, because not all data will apply to a compliance, that's just the reality of it. There are certain pieces of data that apply, and certain ones may apply less often, right? And so, but your control has to be, number one, identify where is that data at? Where is my crown jewel that I need to protect? And then you answer the how, right? And so I want to be tedious before we say, this is how, because there's so many compliances, there's so many frameworks, there's so many different data types, right? CUI, CUI, et cetera, based on wherever you're at, that compliance will in governance will drive typically the how. But first you need to identify it. First you need to identify, and again, this applies to startups. Hey, you can have a 2-person food truck. You're swiping payments. You're collecting money, right? Like there's process data somewhere. Now, if you offshore that or outsource that and push that liability to Stripe or Square or whoever it is, that's fine. But you just need to identify, hey, where exactly is this data going and where do I need to secure it? No different than what the user has to do at home, right? We talk about segmentation. It applies here as well.
Yeah, so to kind of conclude there, clear policies need to be provided with training to employees. So it comes down to the end user to, keep those policies and procedures in place as well when you are working from home. So as always, we harp on education in the safety brief and in Blockworks. It's key. So what are some effective ways to educate employees about remote work security?
Yeah, I think education's key. I would say the number one thing that users need to be aware of is not everything you receive in email or in text message or via social media is legitimate. You go to any of your social media accounts. If you look at your followers list in the past 30 days, 90% of the accounts that are maybe friending you and following you could be bots. They could be fake accounts. They could be trying to gather data. So again, hygiene and segmentation applies there. Phishing emails is going to be the number one thing that I think users will have enter their orbit more so than, users aren't scanning their own files or, things of that nature, right? Again, to the same concept that we ask people to be mindful of where you buy your cables, where you connect your laptop or tablet or mobile device to. Be mindful of where you're downloading files, like from, right? What kind of websites, where are they reputable sources? Just because a coworker emailed you a link doesn't mean the link is legitimate. They could have their account compromised. So I think the theme here for end users is always trust but verify. So if it's a known contact, great. How long does it take to hit the contact that you work with with an IM and it's a message, right? How long does it take to just give them a call? And again, I think a lot of people in the title and home and property purchasing have learned this in the past 2 years, right? We just navigated this as a family recently, but the amount of warnings I received for wire fraud this time around. I bought a house 5-6 years ago. Process has not changed drastically, but the amount of warnings that we received from our lenders saying, hey, please, big, large stop signs, 28, 38 size font, right? That they're working on educating. But again, there are ways to prevent this stuff that are tangible, that are real. Prevention is possible. It's not a matter of if but when. That's not something we align ourselves to. There are ways to mitigate it. So, always verify anytime you receive a piece of information from a coworker, from a boss, even. This includes superiors. Just because they're asking for a gift card doesn't mean it's them asking for it, right?
Mm-hmm. I can tell you how many times I get text messages from our fearless leader asking me to go and give him gift cards.
I don't know why that's only you.
That's funny. Well, Blake
People try
actually
and
said he's
target. I
gotten
don't
one
know.
too.
Yeah.
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 It's really, really interesting when they do that. It's even more fun when they send you something and you're in the meeting with the person and you respond back saying, "Why didn't you just ask me this while we're in our meeting right now?" Yeah, they don't have an answer for that one.
So,
My thought would be, when it comes to trying to educate, it needs to start at the top. I've seen far too many times where the mandate is we need to be security conscious. And the CEO says, "Well, I don't want the security stuff on my machine because it's slowing things down." Great. You're not unique. You're not, special. If you're part of the organization, put the crap on your computer. I don't care if it slows you down. It's going to keep you safe. I know that there is a common joke that says the higher up you get in the company, the less removed or the more removed you are from being actually technical. But in these large organizations where there are tens of thousands of people, that is so beyond true. The further up you get, the more pulled away you are from doing anything technical, and you become more of a people manager. And you don't think about the threats as much. You're thinking about the day to day, you're thinking about everything that you need to get done. But those threats are still there, whether you're thinking about them or not. So saying, "I don't want this on my machine," that doesn't work.
it's almost like
Plus,
saying I want to lock everything in my house other than my front door.
exactly, exactly.
Everything else is locked but my front
And
door.
everybody's going to be looking at leadership for how they are going to handle things. If they see leadership saying, "Well, this slows my machine down, I don't want it," then they're not going to want it. They're going to say, "Well, they don't have it. Why should I have to have it?" Congratulations. You're self imposing terrible security hygiene.
And it just
And that's
takes one
opening
hole
you up.
for a threat actor to get through.
Exactly.
So weakest link
Exactly.
concept applies here as well, right? It's got to be a strong chain link. It can't be just 99 strong links and one bad link. One bad link, the whole thing falls. So you got to have uniform compliance across the organization. You got to have accountability across the organization. Matt talked about a conditional access control where, a government or a business laptop would only connect to the internet if VPN was first enabled. There are ways to practically apply that, and we've done it ourselves as Blockworks. We have services for specifically secure remote access, regardless of the enterprise size. It could be that 5 to 6 person mom and pop shop, could be that large banking organization. We have familiarity with both, in line with compliance. But again, it's something that can't be for others, but not for us, right? We need to adopt that mindset that anybody could be a target, and there are ways to prevent it, but we got to be mindful and educate ourselves, like we're doing here.
The other thing I would say is if you really want to ensure that people are paying attention to a lot of the training and a lot of the education that's going out there, one of the things that we leverage is we do phishing simulations quite frequently. It's a service that we have that we can help out with, doing that. You know what doesn't help? When you tell people the phishing emails are coming.
We see that quite often too.
I can tell you this. I worked at a large AV vendor, not the one that we currently partner with. Back in the day, they had a guy that was very unique and loved going to foreign countries, with lots of Netflix documentaries about him. IT was constantly going through and saying, "Okay, we need to do our phishing simulations and stuff." We would do them every couple months. The problem was IT would tell the managers that there's going to be a phishing simulation that's going out. The first thing the managers do is tell people There's going to be phishing simulations. This is what it's going to be about. We need 100%. Don't screw it up. First and foremost, you don't want 100%. If it's a fake 100%, you want to know where the weak points are. You want to know, did you craft a phishing email that was able to get 60% of the company to click on it? I'd like to know that, because that way you know what kind of things to be monitoring for. But when you tell people, hey, we're going to do this, you're not helping yourselves. You're setting yourselves up for failure, because then an actual phishing email is going to come through and they're going to think, oh, it's another one of those crappy emails. Yep. I'm just going to go ahead and click on it for fun, just to show them, that I know it's a phishing email, but let them think that they got it. Well, it's an actual phishing email. Your data's just been harvested, and now you set yourself up to have your company become the next, contestant on, do you want your data back and for how much? Those episodes air on True TV, generally on Saturday night, yes. Saturday mornings at 1 a.m. It's very obscure and niche, but
that's right.
No, I'm glad you brought up the simulations. I think organizations should also conduct regular training sessions on cybersecurity best practices. You can create engaging and interactive content, or use real-world scenarios to highlight the potential threats, kind of like what we at Blockworks are doing now with the safety brief. This isn't something that's not only shared to the public, but also to our internal team. So all of these topics are covered within our internal team as well. This also includes regularly updating employees on new security policies and encouraging a culture of security awareness.
One thing that I would really like to emphasize, and I don't see enough companies doing this at all, black box pen testing. You want to know where the weak points are and where your data can be accessed without having security, controls in place, or where your security controls are not ample enough to prevent and protect. Have somebody go to town on your network. Hire somebody, do black box pen testing. Every quarter, every 6 months, do that, because as you're changing technology, as you're changing policies, that's going to impact your remote users as well. And in the terrible situation, I've seen this happen. Like Mike, you were saying, somebody working, remotely from Starbucks.
Right.
All right. So you've had a couple soy lattes. You now have to, answer nature. Well, some people aren't vigilant with locking their laptops. If they're not on a VPN, having that black box pen test is going to tell you what data is accessible if somebody were able to do that, in that kind of a situation. Now, one thing that we can say is if you are smaller, you're not enterprise, you're not going to have the budget, obviously, to go out and hire somebody who's going to do, a black box pen test. We have MVAP that can actually help out with that. It's affordable. It's able to help out with everybody. And it'll tell you where your weak points are, what you need to shore up. Mike, I know you've got something you want to say. You're over there rocking back and forth like you're anxious. Go for it.
Yeah, no. Specifically, I just know that a lot of companies will set out and do a penetration test without at least taking inventory of where their vulnerabilities are. Yeah. If you have yet to take inventory of your vulnerabilities, I hate to break it to you, but I can, spoiler alert, tell you how your pen test is going to go. It's going to tell you exactly what you would have found out in a vulnerability scan, but now you're needing to remediate it, right? But no, I got humbled by the internet today, it being June 20th. Google One has officially sunset its VPN service today. So what I just referenced about 15 minutes ago as Google One, Proton VPN is a good one as an alternative. There's others out there. But if you ExpressVPN, right? But if you go looking for Google One today or later, I wanted to make sure I did not lead you astray. I literally just validated it, and article from Android Police, Google One ending June 20th, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm sorry.
Did you get the right year? You didn't missed that it was like
It's
2026 or something.
2024. No,
Ah,
today,
well,
today,
crap.
today. So I believe if you have a
Wow.
Google Pixel phone, it'll persist as a phone based feature. But yeah, no, sure enough, on June 20th, they're paid Google One subscription, unlimited VPN, no more, no more, no more.
That is actually sad because that was a good solution.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, but I just wanted to fit that in there before people were like, "That's a great idea. Let me go look for it." Okay, well,
Never mind,
immediately
it's
gone.
not
That's how
there.
fast stuff changes here, folks. It goes quick.
That's why
So
awareness is important. And
that's right.
speaking of awareness, I just wanted to kind of break down. MVAP it stands for Managed Vulnerability Assessment Platform, and it is available by Blockworks. If you have any questions or concerns or want to learn more about this service, please head over to blockworks.com or check out the link in the description below. Well, that's all the time we have for today. A big thank you to Matt and Mike for joining us, and thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Be sure to join us next time for more tips and trends in cybersecurity. Until then, stay safe and stay frosty.
Thanks all.